gives you a quick flavour. And I've just seen someone saying, time check, Geoff, wrap up in a minute or two. Okay, that's very subtly, very, very subtly done. I thought that was just to me, but I notice it's to me and Dennis, so thank you.
Thanks for calling me out on that, Geoff. Yeah. No, I'm just the guy in the background who's like keeping an eye on the time. And you've taught me that, you know, you've taught me that.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Nigel.
Yeah, we'll do a nice little segue into Dennis then. Welcome, Dennis. And then we'll open up the airways for everyone for Geoff later on, so there's a few questions bubbling there. Thanks, Geoff. Hi, Dennis. Dennis is going to talk about the diversity issue and all the strategic challenges facing schools. So I'll hand straight over to you, Dennis. Welcome.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and great to be in such high company here, and it's great to be able to have the opportunity to speak to you. Yeah, firstly, I want to say thank you for the immense work that you're doing to lead and support your school communities. I support school leaders in a range of ways, so coaching and consultancy, and also research and policy. And one of the things that I'm finding with conversations that I'm able to have with the school leaders is that there's a real risk of the operational overwhelming the strategic. That's always a risk, but it's now more acute than ever. And one particular head teacher recently shared with me that his working day feels like one long lunch duty. And I don't know whether any of you can empathise with that feeling. And the analogy that I would give for this time is that a ship that is in a storm may be taking on water, but it still needs to be steered. And it's staff rotas, the changes that need to be adapted to are often, so immediate and so emergent, emerging so quickly. But yet the direction, the mission, the destinations that schools were going towards before the pandemic mustn't be lost. So managing this tension is really tricky, and that requires time, which is always at a premium, and also communication. And when we stop talking about our strategic priorities, we lose the momentum for change. One of the strategic areas that I've been supporting schools with recently is around diversity and inclusion, particularly supporting schools with their response to the Black Lives Matter movement and the international push for racial equality. This is an important area of school improvement, and it's certainly not one that can be transformed through sporadic focus, and it won't be something that's resolved overnight. I often encounter leaders who would like to know more about the issue, but often feel ill-equipped to deal with the issue and to even have a conversation. And that's really tricky, because if we aren't proactive, prejudices, unequal opportunities and stereotypes that do exist will go unchallenged, and they can often become even more damaging. I'm not going to do it now, but I'd be really interested to know, from the attendees that are here now, who would feel confident about engaging with the complex conversations around race and other aspects of diversity and equality. And if we don't feel confident as school leaders, how on earth are we expecting our staff, let's imagine an RQT in our school, to be able to navigate such topics with their pupils or with their colleagues? And one thing I wrote about recently is there's also a guilt that can be placed on individuals that don't have that lived experience. I'm mixed race, my dad's from Jamaica, my mum's from England. I have a set of experiences which I bring to the work that I do. And I feel like sometimes for those who aren't from an ethnic minority, you can feel guilty that you haven't got that shared experience. But on the flip side, there can also be a burden and a great sense of responsibility that is felt by those who are from ethnic minorities to shoulder the responsibility of change. And I think that, it's really my strong belief that we all have a moral and ethical responsibility to be inclusive and to strive for authentic equality and diversity, but also to instill those principles into our pupils so that they can become ethical, empathetic, responsible members of society. So I know that time is pressing on without it, but I just did want to touch on just 3 areas which I've found to be really important when supporting schools around tackling this complex and nuanced issue of diversity, equality and inclusion. So 3 phases, and I'd love to have the opportunity to speak to you about these in more detail at future opportunities, are knowing, reviewing and adapting. So knowing is about getting understanding of basic data like ethnicity data for your staff and students. The work you do around diversity is for everybody, but it's important to understand who may have been impacted or may be impacted more significantly because of their lived experience and their protected characteristics. So once we know that, the next phase would be reviewing. And that's exactly what it sounds like, you know, looking in depth at aspects of school, whether that be staff pay, where there can often be discrepancies, recruitment processes, performance management, and from a pupil perspective, things like curriculum, the behaviour system, pupil attainment and progress, and also school culture, reviewing and looking in depth at those different aspects. And that then, from there, you can identify particular issues, particular challenges, particular opportunities that are worth exploring. And then that moves into phase 3, where it's all around adapting. If we continue to do what we've always done, we're obviously going to get the same result. So adapting is all about using that information that we've gathered and around the knowledge of the data and also the current school context to change things. That could look like signing a charter and adopting its principles, or developing a EDI strategy. It could look like improving recruitment in a diverse way, or if that's really challenging because of maybe geographical location, looking at how to bring more diverse voices and examples into the curriculum. And there's a range of things that can be done, but I think the most important thing is to start with having conversations. It isn't going to be something that's solved overnight, but it is something where progress can be made. And similar to what you were mentioning earlier on, Geoff, there's an opportunity with this at the moment to make a real step change. It must be done sensitively, and I'm so mindful about talking about something that's so big picture when the reality for school leaders at the moment is so immediate. But it's really important that we don't lose sight of those important agendas, and also we take the opportunities that have come out of this unique set of circumstances. I'm conscious that I've rattled through a range of different things there, so I'm going to pause at this point and open up for questions and discussions on this.
I was just picking up on your point there about head teacher training, and some of this isn't really a question, it's in complete agreement with you, really. You know, we see the head of the Football Association who you know, had the completely inappropriate language, and therefore loses his job. And I think there will be many head teachers in certain territories, whether it be about ethnic diversity or whether it be about the LGBTQ kind of field, where because things move quickly and things develop and change, and understanding what the right language to use is, and where the minefields are. So number one, I would say I think that is a real training need within head teachers, for head teachers. So my question is, where do we get it?
That's a really good question. So because of the growth and scale of the need at the moment, there isn't clarity around where great practice is necessarily available for schools. I would definitely be able to signpost to individuals that I trust and know in this sector. And you know, I do work as well, so always a good plug to plug yourself as a freelancer. But going back to your point around things change, I do take that point. But almost the argument for that would be to say things change, therefore let's not learn. And as educators, I can't see how that would stand up. And I think there's more harm that could be done by being silent. And I do think there's a way of having a conversation without having, you know, myself, you know, I was not claiming to be a diversity expert or guru by any chance. You know, I have a set of experiences, I have a set of skills and knowledge, and I bring that to the conversation. But I think there's a lot of how we have the conversation, rather than trying to feel like there's a perfect way to address things. So I think making a start is important. And yeah, definitely would look to having further conversations with you around how to get some of that support into this network.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. Yeah. If I just pick up on that again, because I think, you know, Suffolk is a fascinating area, having worked here for a while now, and that you can move from Ipswich, where you can work in a school where you can have quite diverse populations.
Yeah.
You know, whether they be Polish, Asian, etc., right through to working in an almost 100% white working class rural school. And so the challenges for headship in terms of taking your community down a route for a greater understanding of diversity can be more challenging in that white working class rural setting. It's much harder. So it's not necessarily even about the head teacher's understanding, it's about how they can help shape that community discussion and growth mindset. It's a sort of cheap phrase now, I guess, but I think that's a fascinating area for development for us within Suffolk.
Yeah, definitely, and it's definitely going to be context specific. But my belief is that we want to empower young people to go out and be able to succeed in any environment, whether that's one that's ethnically diverse or otherwise. And yeah, it's easier in some areas to have greater diversity of staffing, for example. But there are ways to address this issue as well. Geoff, I don't know if you want to chime in there in terms of different contexts in this issue.
Well, just to say, we've had as a theme as a leadership organisation, which is sometimes presented as the heads organisation, whereas our biggest group is actually assistant head teachers, but which also has traditionally looked rather like me, you know, older, white. And we had Lenny Henry at our conference 2 years ago when we were talking about this theme of diversity, and someone asked the question that they put to you, what should you do as next steps? And he says, put your house in order first. Your conference next year needs to look different from your conference this year. And it was a real kind of direct challenge to us. And what we did is to go back to the organisation, which is actually, because we're based in Leicester, we've got a very ethnically diverse organisation, but people from the outside wouldn't see the diversity of that. And it got us back to that, you know, that Simon Sinek stuff, start with why.
Start with why, yeah.
Why does this matter? And we articulate that increasingly. Again, ASCL members will see us referencing some of the stuff we've been doing there tomorrow. Our council has started to bring people with different characteristics onto council, different groups onto council. Partly we have directly identified people who perhaps wouldn't have come from a background or wouldn't have the confidence to say, I'd like to be a council member, and we have co-opted those people onto it. And I, as someone who doesn't represent, you know, some of those groups, and couldn't feel prouder that what we're trying to do is to create all the way through ASCL something that those kids in classrooms, those teachers in schools would think, I want to be in leadership just like those people there. And it's not a quick hit, yeah, but it's a hell of a mission, and it's a really exciting one, I think.
Definitely.
Great. I think we're at the 3 o'clock moment. We can stay online. I'd like to give my thanks particularly to Geoff and also thanks Dennis as well. And hopefully we'll get to see you again next summer.